They say the deepest wounds come from those closest to you. I always believed love could weather anything, especially when it came to my children, but the moment I opened my son's birthday card and read those chilling words, "This will be your last one here," something inside me cracked. It wasn't just a message, it was a warning, a goodbye, a betrayal I never saw coming. Before we begin, tell me, where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments below. I want to know just how far this story reaches, and maybe, just maybe, it'll help someone out there who's gone through something similar. It all began on a quiet Sunday morning, the kind of morning where the house is unusually still, and the light filters softly through the kitchen blinds. I was standing at the sink, rinsing out my coffee cup, when my son Marcus shuffled into the room holding an envelope. He had just turned 29, a grown man, living with me again for the past 8 months after a rough patch with his last job. I didn't ask too many questions. I thought I was being a good mother by giving him space to land, to breathe, to recover. That's what we do for family, right? We catch them when they fall. "Happy birthday, Ma," he said, handing me the envelope. He looked tired, maybe from staying up too late gaming, or maybe something else. I smiled, taking the card, not expecting much. The front was simple. No glitter, no sentimental message, just a drawing of a tree losing its leaves. Inside, in his handwriting, were the words, "This will be your last one here." My fingers froze. My heart thudded loud enough to hear. I looked up at him, but he just gave a weak smile and walked past me toward the fridge, as if he hadn't just handed me a loaded gun, wrapped in a birthday card. "What does this mean?" I asked, my voice shaking slightly. He didn't answer at first, just shrugged and mumbled something about big changes coming. Then he poured himself orange juice, drank it, and left the kitchen like we just discussed the weather. I stood there for a long time, the card open in my hand, those 8 words staring back at me like a threat or a countdown. That night, after a mostly silent dinner, I went into my room and pulled out the drawer where I kept my bills, my paperwork, and most importantly, my savings ledger. I'd always kept a handwritten record, a habit from years before online banking. I opened it to double-check the emergency savings account I'd been quietly building for over a decade. The last time I'd looked, I had just over $42,000 saved up. Money I'd told no one about, not even Marcus. It was meant to be my safety net, my cushion for retirement, or maybe just a trip I'd always dreamed of. When I logged into my online banking, my stomach turned to ice. The balance was $1,200. I blinked, refreshed the page, still $1,200. I started scanning the transaction history, withdrawal after withdrawal. Large amounts, sometimes back-to-back days, transferred to a PayPal account I didn't recognize. Thousands gone within 2 months. I clicked through the details, my fingers trembling. All transfers were linked to an email address that looked strangely familiar. It was Marcus's. I couldn't breathe. I stumbled back into the living room, heart pounding so hard it felt like it would burst out of my chest. He was sitting there, headphones on, playing some game with that blank expression he always wore lately, somewhere between distraction and apathy. I wanted to scream, to throw the laptop at him, but instead, I sat down on the armrest and waited for him to notice me. He didn't, so I spoke. "Marcus," I said coldly, "did you take money from my account?" He paused the game, looked up at me slowly, no guilt, no fear, just annoyance. "You never use it," he said flatly. Those 4 words landed like punches. "You never use it." He shrugged. "You've been sitting on it for years. I needed it." "For what?" My voice cracked. "Stuff," he said, already turning back to this game. "Stuff? Marcus, that was my savings. You didn't even ask. You'd have said no." My mouth opened, then closed again. I was stunned, not just by the theft, but by the casual way he admitted it. As if it was nothing, as if it was his right. "You stole from me," I said, more to myself than to him. "Your own mother." "Don't be dramatic," he snapped. "It's not like you're poor. You've got the house. You've got your job. You're fine." He stood up, stretched, and walked past me again. Just like that. That night, I barely slept. I lay awake in the dark, thinking back over the past year. All the little red flags I ignored, The days he claimed to be applying for jobs but never got interviews, the packages that arrived at the door with expensive gadgets inside, the way he always seemed to have cash for fast food but never chipped in for groceries. And then I thought about the card again. This will be your last one here. What did that mean? Was he planning something worse? Was he expecting me to leave my own house? Or was it a warning that he was about to leave, and not before draining me dry? The next morning I called my bank and began the slow, painful process of reporting fraud. The woman on the phone asked gently if I knew the person responsible. I told her yes, my son. She was quiet for a moment. Then she asked if I wanted to involve law enforcement. I hesitated. I didn't answer, not yet. I still wanted to believe there was something salvageable beneath the betrayal. That maybe this was a cry for help, a phase, a mistake he could own up to. But deep down, I think I already knew. This wasn't just about money. This was about trust. And mine had been shattered. I didn't call the police. Not that day anyway. After I hung up with the bank, I sat at the kitchen table for nearly an hour. The card still lay in front of me, next to my lukewarm coffee. I'd kept rereading those words like they might suddenly change. As if maybe I'd misunderstood. But I hadn't. My son was warning me, one way or another. Either I'd be gone or he would. And part of me was terrified to find out which. Later that afternoon, I found myself doing something I hadn't done in years. I pulled out a journal. Just a simple, spiral-bound notebook I used to write in when I was younger. I didn't know what else to do with all the thoughts crashing in my head. Writing felt like the only way to hold on to myself amid the chaos. That's where I started listing everything I'd paid for since Marcus moved back in. Rent? Of course not. He hadn't paid a dime. Utilities. I covered those. Groceries. I remembered him scoffing once when I bought store-brand cereal, claiming he only eats name brand. Even the car he'd been using, my old Civic, I'd given to him temporarily after his broke down. Looking at that list, I realized just how much I'd given quietly without keeping score. And still, he'd stolen from me. That night, I tried to talk to him again. I needed to understand to believe there was something more than cold entitlement behind his actions. He was in his room, lights off except for the glow of his computer monitor, hunched over the keyboard like a teenager, not a grown man approaching 30. I knocked gently and stepped in. "Can we talk?" He sighed, annoyed, but nodded. I sat on the edge of his bed and chose my words carefully. "I'm not angry about the money, Marcus. Not just the money. I'm hurt. Deeply. You lied to me. You took from me without asking, and now I don't know if I can trust you." He didn't respond, just kept clicking his mouse. "I want to understand," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Why didn't you come to me if you needed help? Why take it like that?" He finally paused his game, turning to face me. There was no warmth in his eyes, just a tired sort of resentment. "Because you're always in control," he said. "You hold everything over my head. You act like you're helping, but it's just another way to remind me I've failed." I was stunned. I had never, not once, thrown his failures in his face. If anything, I'd bent over backward to protect him from the consequences of his own choices. "That's not fair," I said. "I gave you everything I could." "You gave me just enough to make me feel like a child," he shot back. "You talk about trust, but you never trusted me to make my own decisions." I swallowed hard. "And stealing from me, was that your way of taking back control?" He didn't answer. I stood up then. Something in me broke, not with anger, but clarity. My son wasn't lost. He wasn't confused. He was choosing this. Blaming me was easier than taking responsibility for his own actions. "I need you to leave," I said quietly. His head snapped up. "What?" "I need you out of the house by the end of the week. I'll give you until Friday." He stared at me like I'd just slapped him. "You're kicking me out?" "I'm setting a boundary, one that should have been set a long time ago." He stood up, suddenly defensive. "Where am I supposed to go?" "I don't know," I said honestly, "but I know I can't keep living like this. You stole from me, you lied to me. And now you're trying to make me feel guilty for standing up for myself." He laughed, bitter and short. "Unbelievable. After everything I've done for you." That was the moment I realized how far gone he was. I didn't cry that night. I didn't even feel anger anymore. What I felt was grief. The kind of grief you feel when someone you love becomes a stranger. The next few days were cold and tense. We barely spoke. I noticed him packing little by little, mostly electronics and clothes. He didn't apologize, didn't thank me, just sulked in silence, like a wronged teenager being sent off to camp. Then on Thursday night, just before I went to bed, he left a note on the kitchen table, one sentence. "I hope you're happy now." No signature, no goodbye. When I woke up Friday morning, he and all his things were gone. The house was quiet again, peaceful in a way. But it wasn't the peace I wanted. It was the kind that follows a storm, calm, but with debris still scattered everywhere inside you. I walked through the house slowly that morning, noticing the places where his presence still lingered, the indentation on the couch cushion, the missing mug from the kitchen set, the faint smell of his cologne in the hallway. I made a pot of coffee and sat down at the table with the card again, that same one. I hadn't thrown it out. "This will be your last one here." It turned out he was right, but not in the way he meant, because what he didn't realize was that this moment, this betrayal, was going to be the last one I ever allowed in my home, in my heart, without consequence. He was gone now, but the reckoning was just beginning. The weekend after Marcus left, I expected to feel relief. Instead, I felt hollow. The silence that once felt comforting now echoed too loudly. I found myself listening for the sound of his door creaking open, the buzz of his video games bleeding through the walls, the thump of his footsteps across the hallway. But there was nothing. Just me, my thoughts, and that lingering question every parent dreads after doing something they believe is right. Did I fail him? Or did he fail me? I spent most of Saturday cleaning, not just dusting and vacuuming. I mean really cleaning. The kind where you take apart furniture, scrub baseboards, and throw out things that no longer serve a purpose. I wanted to reclaim my space. Not just physically, but emotionally. In his room, I found the bed unmade, a few snack wrappers under the nightstand, and an old hoodie of his tossed in the corner. But I also found something else, something I hadn't expected. A manila envelope wedged in the back of his desk drawer. I stared at it for a moment before pulling it out. My name was written on the front in shaky pen. Inside were a few sheets of paper, bank printouts, some receipts, and an unopened letter, handwritten. I sat on the edge of the bed and unfolded it slowly. "Mom, I don't know how to say this without making things worse. I know I messed up. You didn't deserve any of it, the lying, the stealing, the attitude. I've been angry for a long time, but I never really figured out who I was angry at. Maybe it was you. Maybe Dad. Maybe myself. The money wasn't just for me. At least not all of it. There was someone I trusted, someone I thought was helping me get back on my feet. A guy I met through an old friend. He promised he could help me fix my credit, erase old debts, invest what little I had. He talked fast and sounded smart. I gave him access to everything. Then it all disappeared. I was too ashamed to tell you. Too stupid to admit I got scammed. So I covered it with lies. And when you asked about the money, I lashed out because I couldn't face what I'd done. I guess it was easier to pretend you were the problem. I know it doesn't fix anything. I'm not asking for forgiveness. But I wanted you to know. I don't hate you, Mom. I never did. Marcus. My throat tightened as I finished reading. The bank printouts matched what I'd seen earlier. Only now I noticed the strange outgoing payments to an online investment platform. The amounts were large and frequent, all within the span of a few weeks. He hadn't drained my savings slowly. He panicked, gotten desperate, and gambled it all away on a promise that never existed. And he was right about one thing. It didn't fix anything, but it explained a lot. Sunday evening, I sat on the back porch, wrapped in an old blanket as the sky turned that deep golden hue just before dusk. I watched the trees sway and thought about the little boy Marcus used to be, the one who built forts out of couch cushions and cried when his goldfish died, the one who hugged me tight after school, back when he still believed I could fix anything. Where had that boy gone? Was he still somewhere inside the man who walked out of my house? That night I called my sister, Laura. We hadn't spoken much in recent years, but I needed someone who remembered Marcus the way I did. When I told her what happened, she didn't sound surprised. "You know, he came to me last year," she said. Said he needed help paying off a car loan. I gave him a few hundred, but when I asked for follow-up, he ghosted me. I closed my eyes. I didn't want to tell you, she continued gently. I figured he'd be embarrassed and come clean eventually. But now I wish I had. No, I said quietly. It's not your fault. I wouldn't have believed you anyway. I was too busy trying to fix things. Laura was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You've always had this idea that if you just love hard enough, things will turn out okay." I smiled sadly. Yeah, I guess I did. The next morning, I made an appointment at the bank. There were still open investigations on the fraudulent transfers. I handed over the letter, the receipts, the names from the investment company Marcus used. The banker, an older gentleman with kind eyes, told me they'd seen a spike in scams like this. Young people getting lured into crypto investments or debt relief programs that vanish overnight. He promised to escalate the case. I walked out of the bank feeling, not good, but grounded. Like maybe I wasn't as blind as I thought. I hadn't been betrayed out of malice. I'd been betrayed out of desperation, fear, and shame. And that didn't excuse it. But it made it real, more human. I returned home to find an envelope tucked in my mailbox. No return address, no name. Inside was a folded-up birthday card, one of the cheap ones from the dollar store. It had a cartoon cake on the front with too many candles. There was no message inside. Only a single $100 bill. That night I cried. Not because of the money. Not even because of Marcus. I cried because I realized something I hadn't let myself feel since this all began. I missed my son, not the man who stole from me, but the boy who still might be trying to find his way back. And even though I wasn't sure I could ever let him in again, I hoped he would try. Fall crept in quietly that year. The mornings were cooler, the air crisp with that familiar scent of dry leaves and wood smoke. I started lighting candles in the evenings, baking again, small rituals that once made the house feel warm, alive, but now they felt more like a way to hold on to something I wasn't sure I still had, a sense of home. Marcus had been gone for over a month. No calls, no texts. Only that birthday card and the $100 bill, a strange peace offering from someone who didn't yet have the courage to speak out loud. Still, I carried the letter he left like a stone in my pocket, rereading it some nights, trying to decide if it was remorse or just explanation. Some days I believed he meant every word. Other days I doubted it all. Healing, I learned, isn't clean. It's a jagged thing that stings when it catches the light. Then one Wednesday afternoon, I was standing in the produce aisle, deciding between Granny Smith and Honeycrisp, when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Hello. There was silence at first. Then a voice, low and familiar. Hey, Mom. My breath caught. Marcus? He sighed. Yeah, it's me. I stood there frozen, apples in hand, heart racing. I wasn't sure if I should call, he said. But I've been thinking about everything, and I wanted to talk, if you'll let me. I didn't say anything right away. Then I asked, are you safe? A pause. Then, yeah, I found a room to rent. Nothing fancy, but it's clean. I got a part-time job too, just stocking shelves for now. It's not much, but it's mine. I stepped out of the aisle, found a quiet corner of the store. You sound different, I said softly. I feel different. I didn't expect to, but that night I left, something shifted. I kept hearing your voice in my head, not the angry version I imagined, but the one that used to read me stories at night. I closed my eyes, trying not to let the tears spill over. I know what I did can't be undone, he continued. I stole from you. I betrayed your trust. But I want to make it right, even if it takes years, even if we never go back to what we were. What does that mean to you, making it right? He hesitated, being honest. Owning what I did, finding a way to repay you. Not just the money, but the respect I took for granted. And the card, I asked. He exhaled. I didn't mean it as a threat. I meant it like, I knew it was over. That something between us had changed forever. I was just too much of a coward to say it to your face. We talked for nearly 20 minutes that day, not about the money, not even about forgiveness, just about life, small things. What he was eating, how work was going, whether he still hated mushrooms he did, and when we hung up I didn't promise anything, but I left the line open. A week later, I received a certified letter in the mail. Inside was a signed repayment agreement Marcus had drawn up. With the help of a local credit counselor, he wrote in a sticky note attached. He wanted to pay me back monthly, even if it was just $50 at a time. It wasn't about the amount. It was about the effort. About him showing me in his own flawed way that he was trying to grow. And slowly, something in me softened. Healing didn't come all at once. Some days I still felt the weight of disappointment settle on my shoulders like a fog. But then I'd get a text from Marcus asking how my garden was doing, or a photo of the sandwich he proudly made with, admittedly, too much mustard, or a voice memo of him humming a song he remembered me playing in the kitchen when he was a boy. He was reaching out, not just to apologize, but to reconnect. That winter, I sent him a small package, nothing grand, just a scarf I'd knitted and a note that said, "It's cold out there. Stay warm." He replied simply, "Thanks, Mom. I'm trying." And for the first time in a long while, I believed him. Because sometimes redemption doesn't arrive with grand gestures, it comes in quiet steps. A call made, a truth told, a scarf worn by a son who finally understands the warmth he took for granted. That year, I didn't celebrate my birthday with a party or cake. But I did receive a card in the mail. No drawings, no threats. Just 7 words written in steady, careful print. "Thanks for not giving up on me." And that was enough.